I'm moving out! That's right, friends. In addition to everything else that's happened to me this summer, I somehow found a way to find a place to live on my own. I finally get to move out of my parents' house after 30 years. I'll let you laugh at that for a second. The goal is for my fiance and I to move into there before the wedding. Problem is, it's kind of a small place, so we have to be very picky on what we bring there. That means I gotta figure out what I really want to bring with me. What stays here, what goes to the new place, what gets thrown out, what gets sold, and that includes my comic book collection. Now realistically, I can't bring everything, and I'm not gonna throw it out because I'm not a monster. So that leaves just one option. I gotta sell some of this. Most comic book collectors at some point in their life are faced with the question of whether or not to sell their collection. It's just the nature of the beast. Admittedly, for some, this isn't a problem. They can find ways to keep their stuff and go about collecting like they normally would. For others, however, this isn't an option. For whatever reason they may have, maybe they need some money or they need to free up space, their comics have got to go. But how does one exactly go about selling their comic book collection? Well, that's really gonna be up to you. You gotta find the way that works best for you. And full disclosure, I've never actually had to sell anything from my comic book collection before. This is just some ideas that I've seen float around online and some things that I've thought of while going through this process. So I'm just sharing it with you guys. If you have something that you think works best for you or want to share that with the world, put it in the comments. Before you get started though, I highly recommend that the very first thing you do is take stock of exactly what you own. If you've never done it before, take the time to go through your comic book collection and make a list of what you have and what you're willing to part with. I've been using an Excel spreadsheet these past few years to log my collection, but again, do what's best for you. There are other websites and even programs that can catalog your collection for you, but I like Excel. It's simple and clean. Once you've cataloged everything, now it's time to figure out how you're actually going to sell your comics. In my opinion, the easiest thing to do is to see if your local comic book shop will buy the comics off of you. A lot of local comic book stores do buy back comics from their customers. This way it gives them a nice stock to fill their back issue bin with. The biggest problem with this method, you're definitely not going to get as much as if you were to sell this on your own. Comic book shops need to make a profit, so they'll pitch you a lower number and then sell the comics at a higher price. Anybody who's watched an episode of Pawn Stars knows what I'm talking about. If you're looking to maximize your profits, the best bet is obviously to do it yourself. But even then, I would recommend curbing your expectations. With very few exceptions, don't expect to get more than between $2 and $5 a comic, especially if the comic you're selling was published after 1980. And depending on how quickly you want to move your stock, your best bet might be to sell everything at a discount, maybe $1 to $2 a comic. Now that doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't sell a comic for more than cover price. You certainly can if you know for sure that the comic you're selling has appreciated in value and is worth more than you originally paid for it. Then by all means, sell it at a higher price. I have a few issue ones that are worth double or in some cases triple what I originally paid for it. Am I gonna sell them for that? Maybe not, but we'll see what happens. Don't be afraid to look around and see what your comic is selling for elsewhere. Check eBay, check mycomicshop.com. The Overstreet Price Guide is considered to be the definitive comic book pricing guide and has been for years. Hell, see what your local comic book store typically sells back issues for and maybe try to copy them. But while you're pricing out your comics, try to keep in mind the condition of the book you're selling. Oftentimes, a comic that's worth at least $20 on eBay can sell for as low as $2 because a corner is bent. Another thing I would consider doing is selling your comics in bundles instead of individually. Sure, there are some comics you'll want to sell by themselves, but in certain cases, especially if you want to move your product fast, bundling them together with other comics might not be a bad idea. Specifically, if you have a complete set, like a full story arc or a writer or artist's complete run on a series, things like that. The thing with bundles though is you have even less of a chance for selling your comics at full price than if you were to sell them individually. Unfortunately, when people see bundles, they expect a discount. If you're gonna sell a bundle, I would recommend starting it at half the total price of all the comics. I mean, they're individual comics, so they do go for a little bit more than trades, but they shouldn't sell for as much as full price. If no one buys it the first time, try selling it again for a little less, but I would definitely recommend not selling it for less than what the trade version of that series would cost. Speaking of trades and graphic novels, those don't fetch nearly as much money as rare single issue comics do. Sometimes if the book has been out of print for years, they go up in value, but not often. If you're gonna sell a trade and you know it's not rare or valuable, then I'd say definitely don't sell it for more than the price on the back of the book. You can't even see this, why did I even bother? Definitely try to figure out what you're gonna sell all of your comics for before you post them anywhere. But once you do, now we need to figure out where to post them. eBay and Amazon are the old standbys. There's also Craigslist, the Facebook Marketplace, and Gemmer. They're not sponsoring this video, I just think it's a good platform to use for something like this. Lastly, I would highly recommend bagging and boarding your collection. I know it may seem like a lot of work to do everything and you might have to actually go out and buy some bags and boards, but in the long run, it'll be worth it. They'll keep your comics in good condition while they're being shipped or being shown to potential buyers, and that will show said potential buyers that you cared about your comics. And that's really all you need to know to start selling your comic book collection. Maybe take these tips, start selling a few books, and then down the road, you'll learn some new tricks and techniques to sell better and smarter. Just remember to try and have fun and don't get discouraged. You may not sell your stuff as quickly as you would like, and you may not get the prices you want, but if you take the time and you do it right, it could just be a very worthwhile investment. Have you ever tried to sell your comics or anything that you collected? How did you go about doing it? Do you have any suggestions for potential sellers and buyers? Let me know down below or anywhere on the internet. I'm still in the middle of moving, and the end of August, the beginning of September is going to be very busy for me, so I haven't had a chance to go through everything or post any of this online for sale. But trust me, when I do, you guys will be the first to know. And because I know some of you are wondering, no, nobody's forcing me to do any of this. I'm selling my comics under my own accord, under my own free will, I guess you can say. I hate myself for that. Make sure to do all the YouTube stuff, subscribe to this channel, like this video, share it with a friend who wants to start selling their collection, be it comics or whatever, Funko Pops, video games, shoes. I'm fascinated by people who collect shoes. I find it very odd. I'm sorry if you do that. Thank you all for watching, guys. I will see you next time.